No lie, this season been crazy. But the Washington team winning this weekend kind of put a damper on any really positive move for the Cowboys and the Eagles. Man, I hate to give them boys their flowers, but being 10-2 right now, 4-1 at the home, 6-1 on the way. They're 3-0 in the division. Even though the Cowboys, we 3-1, man, but they just beat one of the better teams in the National Football League called the Baltimore Ravens, right? And for them to this offseason to go out there and pick up a guy like a Saquon Barkley, to have a rookie out of Cooper DeJean who's playing pretty much phenomenal for them, as well as their other DB, Quinyon Mitchell, that's youth. So I hate to say this as a diehard Cowboy fan, they won in the draft, and they won absolutely in the offseason, picking up a Saquon Barkley. They won via the trade acquisitions or paying their players early. And if you go back and look at the previous drafts with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, those boys made impactful plays, and that's on every level. I believe Bond was a off-season acquisition for them or what have you, and he showed up. He's able to get to the edges there. So if anything, being 10-2 right now, they control the driver's seat. It's between the Philadelphia Eagles and not the Baltimore Ravens, but the Detroit Lions. Yeah, and if you look at the Lions, even though they had hiccups this season, they were able to also get pieces to help solidify their team. The common parts of the craziest thing of it all, and this is a copycat league, but the common part of Detroit and the Eagles, if you just chop them two teams up, they can run the ball. It doesn't require for their quarterback to do it all. It doesn't require for their quarterback to do it all. And when you look at it, they can run the ball. They can play sound defense. One is number one defense in the National Football League. Detroit Lions is number 2 defense, give or take. Detroit Lions may have a better offensive attack, but when you look at it and you really look at it, Philadelphia Eagles are very talented in that spot. So if this is a copycat league, then the Cowboys, man, we're going to have to get to it. Now, it's always any given Sunday and these sorts of things next season, but you got to adhere to how teams are winning. And they are winning by grit, running the ball, playing sound defense, and not putting everything on your quarterback. Now, as far as MVP, they're going to probably give that to Josh Allen. Josh Allen been doing his thing. And their team is phenomenal over there, the Bills. And kudos and credence to the Bills. They're 10-2. They beat the Chiefs, right? So they beat the team that got everything in their favorable ways, and the Chiefs are 11-1. So and sneakily, when you talk AFC, you got to love what Pittsburgh Steelers are doing. Look, that joker Mike Tomlin can go into a game with a slingshot when everyone else have guns and even bow and arrows, and he can come out there with a slingshot and still figure out ways to motivate his team, to will his team. It's been 18 seasons, and the brother didn't have a losing season in 18 seasons. That's unheard of, right? And the Steelers doing Steelers things, right? And that's just what it is. They top team. The only thing I can say about the Bills, respectfully, is they really beat up the 49ers for us, and I can't stand the 49ers, but they are 5-7, and just like we are, right? The problem is I don't want them to have a better draft pick than us. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, the 49ers with the capabilities of getting Genty? Oh, my God. That would be flat out crazy. Hey, we talking about Genty. We talking about Luther Burden the third. Can you imagine them getting those type of pieces for their particular team? Can you imagine the 49ers drafting ahead of us, by the way? And they still have a 4th-round draft pick too, right? So it's one of those things, ladies and gentlemen, that when we look back at everything, this season is just crazy. On one end, we can look at it and say, all right, injuries. On the other end, we can look at it and say, hey, the lack of off-season movements and the trade situation for Jonathan Mingo, who's really pretty much was like, hey, we just doing a trade so we can look like we doing something, right? So that's just how that is, and it is just one of those things, right? So we just have to sit back and watch this. Believe it or not, the San Francisco, I want them to win more games. I need for them to start winning more games because I don't want them to have a draft pick ahead of us. And it's crazy because in their division, they're only a game or 2 games behind. Seattle Seahawks 7-5, Cards 6-6. They still in the mix by being 5-7, believe it or not. But back to our Cowboys. We look at everything. Let me see what Tankathon says now, because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we need to win stuff, man. We got the 13th slot now, and we got Miami, Chicago, Cincinnati, New Orleans, Cleveland, Tennessee, who got their whooped versus the Washington team. And the Washington team figure out ways to win. That's crazy, too, on a whole nother level. But neither here nor there. Jacksonville Jaguars claims the number 1 spot in Vegas, and, of course, the Giants, the G-Men. So we'll see. And then the mock draft, let's see what they got. They got the Cowboys now with the 13th spot with Malachi Starks. Yeah. Genty still going to the Cincinnati. But look, 13 and 14, pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. And when we look at the Cowboys collectively, oh my gosh. Let's look at this mock. Malachi Starks, right, with the 13th selection. And in the second round, Omarion, baby. Hampton, he can run. I looked at some of his tape. He can flat out run. He ain't nothing to sneeze at. I wouldn't be mad. 6 foot, 220 pounds, 1,400 total yards here rushing, 14 touchdowns, averaging 5.7 yards per tote, and 295, close to 300 yards receiving with 1 tub there. And then they go into the third round with an offensive tackle, Josh Connery. However you say that man's name. But I would say this, though. Omarion Hampton, between Genty, Ollie Gordon, Omarion Hampton, shoot, both of those boys would be good for us. But I'm just saying this in closing, that the Cowboys, if you look at the Detroit Lions, if you look at the Eagles to a degree, they winning with acquisitions plus drafting. So we're going to have to get better in those departments. And, of course, we got to have a little help on these guys being healthy. So, and it could be a crazy possibility that we'll be looking for a coach too. Well, it's not crazy, but that's the actuality. We'll be looking for a coach. So we'll see how the new coach will work out with things. Or we might have Big Mike McCarthy back. And just to say this too, going back to this scheduling here, shout out to the Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers, they're 8-4. Just like that, what a difference a coach can make. Yeah, what a difference a coach can make. And that coach was able to turn that program around. And trust and believe, I know a lot of people saying, hey, what about the quarterback there? I'm going to say this too. Remember how the Eagles and the Detroit winning? They're not putting everything on the quarterback. But if you look at everything down the stretch and you start to say to yourself, hey, the Chargers, man, they're not trying to put everything on the quarterback here. They're not. They're not putting everything on Herb. They got guys that can step in and do things. And let me see quietly what Herb been doing this year. Yeah. 13 touchdowns to 1 interception. That's how you win the game. They're not putting everything on him. They are not putting everything on Justin Herbert is what I'm trying to get at. And they slowly building it. I won't be surprised, and you guys shouldn't be surprised that next season you're going to hear about the Chargers being similar to the Detroit Lions or the Eagles to a degree. One of those teams like that. That's been my time. I really thank you all for yours. And remember, you're listening to nothing but the best. Go Cowboys.